Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about U.S. bank accounts and having your U.S. bank account closed. And I had an email from somebody today and it said, Mike, my bank account has been closed. What can I do? Not too much. I know of 3 people who've had their bank accounts closed. One of them was able to get their bank account reinstated. The other 2, out of luck. Also, the Patriot Act is a big reason a lot of expats over here in the Philippines and elsewhere in the world are starting to get their bank accounts closed. And Wells Fargo has issued a notice about a new process. They're starting June 1st, 2025, which could cause your bank account to be closed. And we're also going to talk about the 3.5% tax on remittance, people sending money from the U.S. to other countries. So let's get into having your bank account closed. The main reason many people get their bank account closed while they're overseas, living in the Philippines or whatever country they're living in, is because that bank has found out they no longer have a physical address in the U.S. Now, before you come here, I've talked about it many times, you need to have a virtual mailbox, something that has an actual street address that you can use or a relative's address that you can use as your primary residence. Don't tell the bank that you live in the Philippines. Don't give the bank a Philippine address. Make sure you understand the rules and the regulations of the bank that you're using or the credit union that you're using. It's up to you to know if you're going to have any problems with your bank or not. It's not up to me to tell you or some other blogger to tell you. You need to walk into your bank, tell them you're going to be traveling out of the country for a year, and what do you need to do. Don't tell them you're moving. Just tell them that you're traveling. The Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is something that all banks must follow, and that's just a rule where the banks must know their customer, and by knowing their customer must have a physical address in the U.S. to open a bank account. The best way to get around that is to open it while you're in the U.S. Use your driver's license, maybe a bill you got, your water bill, your cable bill that match your address while you're still home before you make the move here. Open up your bank accounts. And I'm recommending you have at least 3 bank accounts before you travel overseas permanently, just in case one of the accounts is closed. And I'll tell you about one guy who had his account closed, but he was able to reopen it. Why was he able to reopen it? He took some precautions before he came over here. He went into his bank. He got a business card of the branch manager, so he had a physical phone number to contact this branch manager. He also told him that he was going to be traveling and got all the information he needed. And it's a bank he's been doing business with for many, many years. He has a strong history with this bank, and it's all on the positive. He doesn't have overdrawn accounts. He doesn't bounce checks. He's just a stand-up Joe like most of us, and he has a rapport with this bank. Well, he's here in the Philippines, and before he left home, he opened up a P.O. box down the street from his daughter, and he thought it'd make life so much easier. He would just have a P.O. box, and he used that P.O. box as a change of address, and he put that with the U.S. Postal Service, change of address, and he put the post office box. Well, the bank probably sent him some information, and then the change of address was sent to the bank, and the bank decided to close his account. They sent him a notice saying, "Sir, we are going to be closing your account." He got on the phone and he called them and he asked them, "What's going on here? You're going to close my account." Well, that branch manager that he talked to, that he had a rapport with, somebody he's spoken to in the past, told him, "You got a P.O. box. You can't have a P.O. box. We're going to have to close your account unless you have a physical address." He said, "Can I give you my daughter's address? She lives right down the street." And the bank manager said, "No problem. Give me her address and you're good to go." So give him his daughter's address as his physical address, and he was good to go. He took the P.O. box off of his mailing address for the bank and just used his daughter. Now, he was lucky that he had a family member that he could use, He also was lucky that this branch manager remembered him and remembered him as being a good customer. So he was able to not get his bank account closed. Now, the guy who got his bank account closed, he has an account with Charles Schwab. He was having an issue with his debit card. He needed a new debit card. So he called customer service, spoke to somebody. No problem. We will send you another debit card to the Philippines, for X amount of money, but they're going to send it to him. He was happy. They were filling out all the information, talking to the customer service. And the customer service asked him, "Are you living in the Philippines now?" And he bragged, "Yes, I've been here 2 years and loving it." And the lady asked him, "Are you going to continue living in the Philippines?" And he said, "I have no plans on returning." Well, the customer service agent at that point said, "Sir, I'm going to have to request that your account be closed." And the guy said, "Why?" And the customer service said, "Just like because you told the agent that you're no longer living in the US, that you're living in the Philippines." And the thing is, all these conversations are recorded. They can't change. The recorded conversation is exactly that. It's recorded. That employee is not going to risk their job for you because they don't know you from anywhere. So don't volunteer information that's not needed. Don't tell people you live here with the banking industry. Don't tell them you no longer live in the US. Don't tell them anything they don't need to know. Make sure you understand the rules of your bank. That guy was pretty foolish there. He just started starting to brag about the good life he was having here. He was feeling comfortable with the customer service agent. Chances are, if he would have talked to any other customer service agent, he would still have his bank account. But now it's too late. They closed his account and they mailed him a check to his physical address that he had on record, which he doesn't live anymore. So he has a check with his account balance floating around. And, this is just a nightmare beginning to happen for him. I don't know how much money he had in the bank there, but it's a mess. It's a mess with Charles Schwab. It's a great bank to have, the fees that they reimburse you for your ATM, but it's a great bank until it's not a great bank for you anymore. Because once they decide to close you, they do close your account and they just send you a check to whatever address you gave them. So make sure that address is somewhere where you can get that check because you're going to need it. The other guy who got his account closed was somebody who just overdrawn, and I did a video about this guy. He just ran up a bunch of debt, owed a lot of money. The courts issued a judgment against him, and they went into his bank account and they took his assets. The bank then decided after that he was a risk, and they closed his bank account, and he's never going to get his bank account back again. So if you owe money in the US and you get a garnishment against your bank account, or if your credit score drops too low, the bank can always see this and determine that you are a risk and close your account. And if that happens, and it did happen, you're never going to open an account with that bank again. So make sure you got everything under control before you come here to the Philippines. Have your banking in order, have your physical address correct. It's an address that the bank will accept. Have it be either iPostal 1, be your daughter, be, a sister or a friend, somebody that'll let you use their address. But get your banking in order before you get here. Nothing worse than waking up in the morning, no matter how much money you have in the bank, and you have no access to that money. You're screwed, dude. You're just screwed. And under the Patriot Act, the bank has no recourse. If they know that you don't live in the United States, you don't have a physical address in the United States, under the Patriot Act, they have no recourse. They can freeze the account, or they could even close the account. I think they end up freezing it for a while, giving you time to prove that you still live in the U.S. or you have a physical address. So that'll give you some time to resolve that issue. Now let's talk about this 3.5% tax on remittance. Remittance is when you send money from the U.S. over here to the Philippines or any country in the world to yourself or to a loved one. A subscriber sent me that, and he wanted to let me know how screwed I was because I'm living overseas and how foolish it is that I'm going to, send money to myself and there's going to be a 3.5% tax. Well, I looked up that bill. It's a 3.5% tax on non-U.S. citizens. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you're sending money to yourself or you're sending money to a loved one, you're not going to get taxed. I believe that this is part of the bill that will be taxing money that illegals send back to their home country, to their family. They're here working illegally and they're sending U.S. money abroad. So the government is going to start taxing that an additional 3.5%. And let's talk about Wells Fargo. On June 1st, 2025, a notification has been sent out prior to that, but stating that on that date, on June 1st, 2025, any account that's been inactive for 16 months or more will be closed. Now, people like me, people like you, we can't leave money in the bank for 16 months, but there are a lot of people over here who do. You put money there and you just let it sit there. Maybe it's a small amount of money. Maybe it's your emergency fund that you just have sitting there. But if it's inactive for 16 months, that's a red flag. Any inactive account is a red flag. I'm going to recommend you always use your accounts. Keep your accounts active. I have 3 accounts and they're linked to each other. I have an automatic transfer each month from one account to the other to the other. They're transferring money to each other all the time. And for me, it's the best way to keep that account active. And let's talk about credit cards. You got to keep your credit cards active. I got a notice from Capital One stating that if my credit card is at a 0 balance for 6 months with no activity, they're going to cancel my credit card. I don't really use them that often, but you have to make sure you use them. I use my credit card to pay iPostal One, my virtual mailbox. I use the other credit card to pay for one of the services I use with YouTube, StreamYard. I use another credit card for another service I use. And so I have 3 accounts, 3 credit cards that are always being used, that are always active. I never use a debit card here in the Philippines. I've never used a credit card here in the Philippines. I've only used them for online transactions. If I buy from Amazon or I buy from somebody and have it shipped here, everything is done from my U.S. banks, anything in the U.S. and stuff here in the Philippines. I use my Philippine bank account. So I'm pretty well buffered from American banks, knowing that I'm living here in the Philippines. Even when I transfer money, I transfer it on my phone app, the World Remit app on my phone. I open that up, I do the transfer, and then it asks, how am I going to pay for this? And I use my debit card. And I transfer the money from my debit card to World Remit. Then World Remit sends it here. So there's really no tie saying that it's being transferred overseas. So they don't know where I am, what I'm doing. Hopefully I get to keep my bank accounts open for a long time with no issues. But a lot of people now are starting to get their accounts closed. A lot of guys are making a lot of mistakes. They're not talking to their bank. They're not telling them they're traveling. And then all of a sudden they're using their debit card. They're over here too long and they don't have any mailing address. They don't know how to get their mail. And the bank finds out that you're no longer living at the address that you gave them. Well, that's a red flag, and they might freeze your account until you come in to prove where you live. And by that time, it does no good doing it online or doing it on a phone call because your driver's license might have expired already. And using your passport, that's a red flag too, that you don't have a physical address. So guys, be aware of these issues with the bank. You need to maintain control of your money. You need to have access to your money. And don't be foolish. Don't give up too much information. Remember, you're traveling. You're traveling here. Don't tell them you're living here unless you have a rapport with your bank and it's okay with your bank. If you don't have a permanent residence in the U.S., if you're lucky and you can use family, use family. If you're lucky enough that you have a rental property, use that. But you need to have some sort of physical address. If you have any questions, send me an email, send me something on Facebook. I'll be glad to answer your questions, and leave your questions down in the comments section and give everybody who's watching this video a chance to answer your questions for you. Until next time.